where in Western Balkans where you started, you have your figures that says the region has gone down in its fertility rate. Even Kosovo, that was always highest, we've come beneath the basic reproduction.
I mean, it's not just Western Balkans or Europe. We're talking about a global trend, a kind of mega trend, if you like, which is to talk about kind of falling fertility rates and aging.
Yeah.
The difference is that some places are sort of more advanced and ahead than others. Now, in general terms, Europe is kind of much more advanced in this issue of kind of falling fertility rate, falling birth rates, and aging societies. But what I've realized, what I've understood is that you have those trends. So, okay, as you said, kind of fertility rates falling. And in Kosovo, it's interesting because your fertility rate has fallen under replacement rate, which is 2.1. As people say that you need to, if you discount migration, you need, every woman needs to have about an average of 2.1 children. So fine. But what's interesting about Kosovo in particular is that your change happened remarkably quickly. Yeah. I mean, what happened in 150 years in Britain, for example, happened in 2 generations in Kosovo. So,
or even less. I think we are the last 20 years, maybe, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think because I checked this, I think that after the Second World War, you had a fertility rate of something like 7.6. It was like really, really high. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of like, was just phenomenally high, which was when it was partly because of poverty, etc. Yeah. And now it's under 2.1, but it's happened remarkably quickly. Yeah. That's what I want to say. Yeah. Is that like in Britain, people had 7 children, but like 300 years ago, not 70 years ago.
Okay, so we have
societies are aging. Yeah, right. But you're right, society's aging. But what I want to say was that what I've realized with demography is that although these trends are the same, the way that everything plays out in different European countries is it's remarkably different. So, for example, you have in Kosovo, you have beginnings of you're quite young, but you're beginning to age. And you have a lot of emigration. So your population is shrinking quite fast, but not just because of kind of lower fertility rates, but especially because of emigration. But for example, in Britain, we have the same falling fertility rates and an aging population, but we also have a population that's growing because of immigration.
Right.
So in Spain, what concerns people in Spain is something different, which is, well, they have immigration, first of all. But in Spain, the difference is that you could have vast areas of the country basically hollowing out and becoming empty. So they call this the emptied Spain. So in Spain, you have 70% of the population live on 30% of the territory, which is, say, Madrid and coastal areas. So in different countries, there are different issues, although some of the trends are the same.
Okay. Kosovo has reached the fertility rate of Italy and Spain. So, and these are the
I think you're a little bit higher than Italy and Spain. Italy and Spain are like remarkably like 1.18. Also, Kosovo, it's really hard to know because, you have kind of, it's very difficult to know in Kosovo exactly because a lot of women, for example, will go to, for example, to Skopje to have kids. So should they be recorded in North Macedonia's figures or Kosovo's figures? And then you've got people in the diaspora who live in the diaspora, but then register as having kids here for various reasons. Yeah. There are all sorts of, but I mean, clearly it's come down.
Yeah, it's come down. No, what I wanted to say was this. The Western Balkans are below reproduction rate in general.
Yes.
There are unfinished conflicts.
Yes.
And the only way they can get to more development is through immigration, which is a big paradox because the conflicts are identity based to an extent. Take Serbia, Bosnia, and Kosovo. You suddenly see, whilst there was a big fight about the identity of the Bosniaks or the Serbs or the Croats, now suddenly you see Pakistanis and Bangladeshis and people from Eastern Asia coming to the region to work, even in Kosovo.
Well, yes, but I mean, I think you're at the beginning of this process. Yeah. So, I mean, it will take years or to sort of to work through to where it becomes perceived by politicians as a problem. I mean, the numbers of immigrants working here is like a couple of thousand or something.
Yeah.
But it's very small. But, in Britain, we're talking about kind of large numbers. And in the US, you're talking about large numbers. We're talking about, so in countries where it's become this problem in inverted commas, it's when you've got 20% of your population is foreign born. I mean, the number of people who are foreign born in Kosovo, or I don't know, Albanians or Serbs, must be kind of pretty minuscule. But this potentially is a problem in the future.
And then we have this Eastern trend somehow. The Western Balkans people went to Western Europe, and that process is more or less suffocated, no, if you will. I mean, there's the number who is steady there. We don't see gastarbeiters the way we saw them in the 60s or the 70s. We see people who are staying there. We see new diasporas, new Western Balkan diasporas in Western Europe. And now we see people from Asia moving in the future, maybe from Africa. Is this a European trend?
Well, this is 100% a European trend. I mean, of course. And I mean, but it's like communicating vessels in a way that you kind of have, for example, let's take the case of Romania, for example, where a lot of people have left and emigrated in the last 30 years. Now Romania's economy has kind of stabilized, is doing kind of well, and they have a shortage of labor. So people are beginning to come from Nepal and Bangladesh and other countries to fill those gaps. But you also have other issues. For example, Romania, like here, has seen a sort of outflow in the last couple of decades of doctors and medical staff. So what they're doing is they're now importing doctors and medical staff from Moldova, partly because they speak Romanian. Language, So it's easy. But I mean, this is something that's happening. This is something that's happening everywhere. That you're getting people coming who are replacing the people who've left and are obviously earning less money. But
when you started writing about it, you wrote a very dramatic portrait of Europe, in which you said that by 2100, if the present demographic trends continue, Europe will be needing 1/3 of a new workforce. So it will not have. It will be missing a third of its workforce. Okay,
so first of all, that's true, but you're talking about current trends.
Yeah.
So two points here. The first is that you look at the statistics and you think, okay, it continues like this. This is the result, but things can change. And the classic example is that when you and I were growing up, the problem was perceived as being the world is soon going to be overfull of people. There's going to be too many people, and we're going to see huge, massive famines in India and other countries. And this is what people talked about and feared in the 70s and 80s. But just as people feared that, technology changed the world. So you had the Green Revolution, which meant that farmers in India or around the world could suddenly grow 4, 5, 6 times more food on the same plot of land than they could do before. So technology changed that. Okay, sure, there have been famines in the world, but not the sort of massive sort of famines and death and overpopulation that was feared then. So first of all, things could change, and I actually think that now maybe we're beginning to see that, and I hadn't really seen this before when I wrote that original stuff. I think that actually, what we may see is that labor shortages are increasingly mitigated by increased robotization, automation, and AI. So you increasingly see in farming, for example, where, I mean, I'm not saying this in Kosovo, but I'm talking about in richer countries, you could see kind of robotization and automation. But I mean, in everything really, we're going to see more technology. So I think kind of labor shortages will be mitigated. The other thing is that, somebody who's our age, born in the early 60s, who would have like retired at like in a year or two. Now we don't retire. I mean, okay, fine, we're not working in construction jobs, we're in heavy jobs, but increasingly, you know, we will work, we can work, we will work longer, and we can work longer because we're healthier than ever before, and so things will change. So that statistic is true, but it you've got to take into consideration that things are changing